Last Saturday, the president invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to declare that a Venezuelan foreign terrorist organization, Tren de Agua, is invading the United States and unauthorized and authorized the expedited removal of its members from the United States. Walk us through the Alien Enemies Act, why he invoked it, issues around it, and is it going to be obviously used beyond Tren de Aragua?
Well, you got me here?
Yeah.
Okay, well, look, the president, through proclamation, invoked his authorities under Alien Enemies Act, and what the media is not telling you is that that's a law passed by Congress, signed by the president, so he's taking his executive privilege and invoking that Alien Enemies Act, which is the right thing. There's been numerous investigations, deep investigations. We know that Tren de Agua come to this country to unsettle this country. They're connected to the Maduro regime, to the military and law enforcement. We know that. They came to this country to commit violent crimes, to spread fentanyl, to kill thousands of Americans, and create havoc and unsettle this nation. So the president took his authority through executive action, and we invoked the Alien Enemies Act. It's the right thing to do. TDA is an enemy of the United States, just by the mere fact of what they did when they got here. So they are a priority of this administration. The president's been clear that criminal safety threats, public safety threats, national security threats are going to be priority one, and they are priority one of priority one. So we're going to do everything we can to get every single TDA member out of this country as quick as we can to save American lives. And that's what the president did.
And as a quick follow-up, talk a little bit about the ruling where we have a federal judge who says what you're doing is seeking an injunction against turning the planes around.
Well, I found it remarkable that any district judge has the authority to overrule the president's executive orders. And what basically he wanted us to do is turn planes around in midair full of terrorists and bring them back into the United States, which is just ridiculous. And we didn't do it. Now it's under litigation. But as I've been clear, I'll let DOJ fight that out. I'm not a lawyer, I'm a cop, so we'll let the lawyers fight it out. But bottom line is we're not going to stop doing what we're doing. We're going to arrest aliens today. We're going to arrest TDA today. We're going to deport TDA today. We're going to deport criminals every single day. ICE is out there right now. I just looked at the numbers. There are about 40,000 arrested by ICE in the interior since the president took office. The vast majority of them being public safety threats and national security threats. They're not going to stop us. The district court judge isn't going to stop us from making this country safe again. We're going to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And I would just add, where was the district court judge when all these folks were coming into the United States, right? And so this idea that you're going to have a judge or even, the left of the country is now siding, first they sided with illegal aliens and now they're siding with terrorists instead of with the American people. So I think Tom's exactly right, and I think the American people, by and large, support what the president is doing here.
Governor, now you have some thoughts on the judge.
Well, look, first of all, the U.S. Supreme Court had a chance to nip all this in the bud about a month ago, and they could have just been aggressive, put these district judges in their place. But, the three liberal justices, they're always going to be against no matter what. And then of the six others, a lot of them aren't reliable. Thomas is reliable. Alito's reliable. But you had a 5-4 where the Chief Justice and Justice Barrett sided with the liberals, kept these cases alive. And it was a different case than the one just there. But the principle is, are we ruled by the consent of the governed under elections and under a written constitution, or are we ruled by a district judge in D.C., Hawaii, wherever the hell they can shop for a judge to find somebody, and then that trumps everything that is in the Constitution in terms of executive powers, because that's what they'll keep doing if you let that happen. So the U.S. Supreme Court needs to put a kibosh on it. Forget about just whether a judge should even be involved in this to begin with. Clearly, if you have one case judge rules against the government, that shouldn't be a nationwide injunction where the government can't act in all the other 99.9% of the cases. And so the U.S. Supreme Court could reel that in if they wanted to, and maybe they will. But Congress, people say, oh, these courts are out of control. They've been out of control for a long time. It got worse under Trump 45. We knew this was going to happen. Like, this is the most predictable thing, that this is what the left would do. Congress has the authority to strip the courts of jurisdiction over certain issues. They can say you can't hear any case involving the removal of an illegal alien or the removal of certain classes. They could do that if they wanted to do it. They haven't done that. They haven't been aggressive on it, but that's plain in the Constitution. When Jefferson became president, they had problems with judges. They just eliminated these judgeships that they had problems with. They didn't even bother. So like, none of these courts exist as a matter, other than the Supreme Court, none of the other courts even exist as a matter of constitutional right. That's purely the discretion of Congress to create and then set the jurisdiction. So, and we were talking about this earlier before we came out. If you look at how our government, not just on immigration, on everything, how our constitutional system has really been transfigured in a bad way over many, many decades. The root of the problem is Congress's fecklessness. The reason why you have so much debt, continuing resolutions, a massive bureaucracy run amok, because Congress doesn't use the power of the purse to rein it in. The reason why you have these judges doing what they're doing, because Congress has not used the authority in the Constitution to take political issues away from the courts and make sure that that's reserved in the executive branch. So I don't know. I mean, basically, if Congress isn't going to do anything, then you're hoping that the U.S. Supreme Court will ultimately put the kibosh on this. And maybe they will. And I think that the arguments that the Trump administration will put forward are the right arguments. But I've also seen them put forward the right arguments already, and the Supreme Court has not been willing to adopt those arguments yet. So we'll see what happens. But if they don't put the kibosh on this, then you're just going to have 4 years of trying to find the most liberal judge you can, file a lawsuit. They'll say nationwide injunction, and then your hands are tied from doing the job that the American people elected the president to do.
Secretary, I'll come back to you. A lot's been said lately about, until we get this under control, until there's some real meaningful long-term solution, just shut down the border completely. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that's what President Trump's and the team is doing, right? They're using the authorities that they have to make sure that they protect the American people. So the national emergency, a 212F order, all the things that they're doing now are things that could have been done the last 4 years under President Biden, right? They chose not to do that from just the sheer will of not wanting to go in a certain direction. So we hear a lot of talk about, comprehensive immigration reform, which is like the worst term I've ever heard. But I think what the Republican Congress needs to do now is look at all the actions that that President Trump and his team are putting in place, and how do you codify that into law, so that if you do have a different president from a different party, that they're just not going to undo everything. And so Congress really needs to take a good look at what's being done here, put it into law so that we don't have the chaos of the last 4 years that we had under President Biden at that border, because that's what will happen if we don't get a lot of this just enshrined into law. Executive authority is great because you can do it quickly, you can do it fast. I'm just worried in 4 years when President Trump leaves office, and it's not a Republican and a conservative that has an enforcement mindset, what is that border going to look like? And so that's where I would push the Republican Congress to do, obviously we can get a lot of infrastructure. I know we're building wall. There's a maritime buoy going in South Texas. There's a lot of stuff that President Trump's doing today, but you got to get it codified into law.
And they've really not in Congress done anything to codify any of these actions. I mean, let's just be clear. You came in, and it's almost like you have the Trump administration has gone 100 miles a minute on all this stuff. everything but the kitchen sink to move the country in the right direction. Congress is like almost the opposite. Like they're on a 2-week vacation right now. They haven't voted to codify. They haven't successfully codified a single executive order. We were talking about the border wall. They just passed a continuing resolution, Republicans' votes, that did not provide 1 cent for the border wall. It was just a continuation of Biden's spending from last year. That's all it was. USAID, they go on cable news. Oh, this is so bad. And yet they voted to fully fund AID. Now, President Trump's not going to probably allow some of these grants to go out, which is great, but why wouldn't Congress at least do that? I mean, DOJ is doing all this stuff. So I think that they've not shown any inclination to do what Chad is saying needs to be done. And what will happen is you will absolutely see all that go up in smoke if a new president comes in 29 that doesn't agree with these policies. It'll happen like that. So, you got to start to think strategically. You got to start to think more long term. And it's great to see what's happened at the border for it to go down by 96, 98%, whatever, in 2 months when they said you needed some convoluted bill to be able to secure the border. That was obviously a lie, but it's been proven to be a lie. But you can just as easily reopen the border like Biden did. I mean, he reopened the border. He was flying people in. They were literally going to foreign countries and flying people in to the country and dumping them all over the United States. And that happened for 4 years. So we've got to get this into law. And I think Congress really needs to be way, way more aggressive than what they've been so far.